So hello everybody. So I wanted to give a bit of an update for people. Is the war in Ukraine ending? What is the progress there? So the war in Ukraine is still going on, and there's been no thought that it's going to end or ceasefire tomorrow, or there's no date for that. And so a lot of people who are sort of opposed to Donald Trump have said, well, he's a liar. He said he'd end it in 24 hours. And he hasn't. So I wanted to start by saying, so that hasn't happened. And there is actually a reason why that hasn't happened. So the reason that it hasn't happened is because before leaving office and knowing that he was going to lose, or know that he lost already, Joe Biden put in place a number of what they called Trump-proof deals with Ukraine to ensure that Ukraine continued to get military funding that would last for at least the next 6 months to a year. And because of that, Ukraine, no matter what Trump does, he cannot stop USA funding Ukraine for the next 6 months to a year. Now, not sure exactly how long that'll be, but it's for quite a long period of time. So it might even be for his entire period in office. So it might be the whole 4 years. So Trump cannot end it in a Russia-favoured way in the foreseeable future because Ukraine will just keep fighting. Now the other thing is, as we previously worked out, the war cannot be ended in a Ukraine-favoured way because Russia would never accept it. So because of this, essentially Joe Biden's actions in the last few weeks of his tenure have meant that Trump cannot end the war. Maybe he can in a couple of years, but certainly not in any easy way. So this is essentially, and quite an unusual case, where the predecessor has made sure that the person coming in cannot fulfill his election promise. Now, at least not in the way that he was going to. So you might call that dirty politics, dirty pool, but politicians do often do these sorts of things to sabotage each other. It's not completely strange to do that. But we need to be aware that that has happened. And so people who are saying, oh, Trump broke an election promise, he actually didn't. Biden broke it for him. Now, as for has there been any other progress? Well, there actually has. So Trump has been going on about how he's now talking about sending tariffs to Russia, which to me sounds quite strange. Russia's already got massive sanctions. What are tariffs going to do when they're not trading with them in the first place? They're not going to do anything. And Russia has predictably pretty much ignored that. Now, what Russia has said in response is that they have essentially threatened to kill Trump. At least that's how I'm reading it. So they've said, well, he survived 2 assassination attempts, I wouldn't be so secure. And he might get killed. Now, of course, they didn't openly say they're going to assassinate Trump, but essentially that's sort of the way that I would be reading that. That Russia have planned to assassinate Trump unless they get their way. So that's pretty nasty. And Russia's not not joking around. They're saying, well, essentially saying, we're going to get assassins or support American assassins to kill you. And of course, we know that the 2 assassins were part of the Democrat Party movement. Now, one of them was killed, so we won't know exactly what happened there. But the other one was not. And he is yet to face trial. When we do, we might get some more insight into it. But suffice to say, Russia are planning on working with the Democrat Party or people opposed to Trump, which obviously won't necessarily be everyone in the Democrat Party, but will be some of the extremist groups. And it might not all work. There might be some people in the Republican Party or some other party that are in that position, that they're willing to assassinate him, and they're going to support that. So Russia's in the position where they're... I know a lot of people say, oh, Russia and Trump are friendly. Well, they're just threatening to kill him, quite openly. About as openly as you can get. And I know it's very veiled, but that is still pretty open. Now, what Russia have reportedly asked for, and this is a very strange one, is that they have asked for Anthony Fauci. who is currently, he's retired, but he was in charge of the Centre for Disease Control in USA when COVID-19 came out. And some conspiracy theorists in USA have blamed him for the COVID-19 pandemic itself. Now, I've seen no evidence for that whatsoever, but and it's very much a minority group that are saying that. But some of the people saying that are suggested to be Trump supporters. Now, I've never before heard any hint that Russia agree with them. But apparently Russia want him to be extradited to Russia to face trial for what they're calling crimes against humanity. Now, I checked, is this confirmed? No. Is this confirmed to be false? No. So this is a rumour that could be true, might not be true. I don't know if they've really said that. But I've had a look through, is it likely to be true? And I'd say the answer is more likely than not that this is what's happened. So they're unlikely to confirm it 100% because if this is a sort of negotiating deal, it's the sort of thing they wouldn't do. They wouldn't confirm it. So why would Russia want Anthony Fauci? And the reason is because they want to blame USA for the virus. And going after Fauci as an enemy, if you like, of Trump, because Fauci very much opposed Trump when Trump was in power the first time. And Trump, a lot of his supporters wanted to have Fauci charged. And so we saw a situation where Biden pardoned him without actually being charged with any crime. It happened in the hours before, or as Trump was being inaugurated, Fauci was pardoned. Now, being pardoned of a crime you haven't been charged with is not necessarily an admission of guilt, but it kind of is. It's a bit legally grey. Does that mean he admits guilt? Well, according to Trump it does, but some people are a bit unsure about that. But the thing is, does that mean he can't be extradited, or does it mean he still can be? Certainly if he ended up in Russia, he could be charged, because a pardon in USA does not affect any other country. But it might actually affect the ability to extradite him, because extradition itself is sort of a criminal proceeding. And there has to be an acknowledgement on behalf of the country that agrees to extradite that there's at least some possibility of a crime. Otherwise they wouldn't agree to an extradition. There also has to be an extradition treaty and so forth. So Russia want to do it as kind of part of the deal. And Trump may not have the power to do that. He cannot go against the pardon of Biden. And he can't charge somebody who has been pardoned. He cannot, because it's pardoned not just from past crimes but also for future crimes. And this would be for a crime that he's already committed but hasn't been charged for. This is definitely covered by the pardoning. So the question would be the extradition bit. Yes, Russia can have him stand trial if he's in the country, but he'd have to be in the country first. I don't know that he can be extradited. He might be able to, there might be some way to do it, but I don't know that they can. But why would Russia want to do this when they'd never suggested beforehand that they blame Fauci for anything, at least not that I'm aware of? And the reason would be this is a part of a way for Russia to get leverage over Trump and USA, because if they have Fauci there, what they're likely going to do is they're going to say that they have proof that Fauci and USA as a whole created the COVID-19 virus as a way to hurt people. Now, okay, USA had the most lives lost, but that's not proof that they didn't do it. And China's always maintained that USA started it. Russia hasn't, but China has. And so that would likely be an international cooperation between Russia and China. Maybe even some people from America would get involved. And it would blame him, but not just Fauci himself, but a number of people in USA, because if that was man-made, it's likely more than one person was involved. So you'd probably be having 20 or 30 people, maybe more, who would be charged. Now, they wouldn't all be in Russia to face sentencing, but they would all have a Russian charge that a lot of people would just ignore. So that's something that could essentially say, well, the US government were responsible for that. And the problem is, who was in power when the COVID-19 pandemic started was Donald Trump. So Russia would essentially be blaming Donald Trump for this. And Trump is best advised not to give him up, but maybe they could do a sort of way where they say, well, it actually was started before Trump started in power under Obama's leadership and so forth. Trump wasn't aware of it, and it was a long-term plan, because something like that might take 10 years or so. So that's the sort of thing that they'd be looking at, and that's actually in line with what Russia have claimed about the biological weapons facilities that they claim are in Ukraine. In fact, they claim that's what Hunter Biden was doing in Ukraine. And some people in America agreed with that and provided evidence that said that is what he was doing there. They were creating illegal biological weapons facilities in Ukraine aimed at Russia, and apparently there was 8 of them. I believe they found 2, or maybe 1, or maybe 3, I'm not sure the number, but they certainly found at least one that they claim. Now, we're saying they claim. There's some evidence that it was, but there's some evidence that they may have been lying about that. So I don't want to say for certain there definitely were, but what I am going to say is that USA is the only country on earth that has the capacity to man-make a virus and to create biological weapons facilities. So yes, the idea of this started in World War I Germany, and also World War II Germany continued with it, but Germany don't do that anymore. And USA is the only other country that ever got involved with it. So yeah, the USSR were thinking about it, but they never got around to it because they went to nuclear instead. But USA went both nuclear and this. They used that sort of stuff in Vietnam, and people said, oh no, they stopped. No, they kept going. So, and we know that after the 9/11 attacks, there was all of this evidence that USA were creating all of that stuff. There was anthrax, all that sort of stuff. So, and I've said from the start, there is no possibility that China created the virus. That was never possible. But there is a chance that USA did. And I never thought it was very likely, because it looks as if, to me, from what I've seen, looks as if it was created from bats, and that the bats, it was a natural, it just sort of happened from the bats just by accident, a natural mutation that happened in cramped conditions in cages on top of other animals and such in the markets that they have in China. So unsafe storage facilities, wet food markets often have that sort of thing. That's why they're illegal in most parts of the world. China have them. I believe China's the only country that legalised them. Other countries do have them illegally. A bit like how China eats dogs and cats, and it's legal in China, but it's illegal in other countries. But some other countries, particularly those with ties to China, do still have it. For example, South Korea has dogs and cats being eaten, but it's illegal. They still do it, but it's illegal. So I think that my view, from what I've seen, is that the virus was created naturally from cramped conditions from bats in these wet food markets with unsafe food storage conditions, and I don't believe that there was a man-made element. However, I acknowledge it is possible that there was, but if it was created by USA. There's no way that I mean, unless I'm way off who has the ability to do this, and China somehow got the ability now when they didn't have before, and never have before. Yeah, China could never have done it, but USA could have. So that's not to say they definitely did, but they could have. So this, I think, could be very dangerous for Trump, and I think if this does happen, we could also find Hunter Biden being sent to Russia to face the charges related to the alleged biological weapons facilities. And essentially this is a bit of a trap, and I think that Trump should not do it, because if he does that, Russia will have leverage over him, and then they'll make him do what they want, or else kill him, and they've already threatened to kill him. So I don't think he should extradite Fauci. I don't know if he can, but he certainly shouldn't. And that's, yeah, but it's interesting that they're trying to do that. And I think this says very clearly, Russia are not friends with Trump. Don't know, a lot of people think they are. Yeah, this is sort of a very criminally manipulative thing. I'm not saying Russia are bad people for doing this, but because it's in their best interests. But yeah, there's no way that Russia are friends with Trump. And yeah, so I certainly think Trump should not do that, and hopefully he gets good advice. That's it for me. Bye bye now.